Hello, my name is Vladan Joler. I'm a professor of new media at the University of Novi Sad. But what I'm going to speak today, it's mostly about my another life, my secret life. So for years I had some kind of strange obsession of being a detective, basically detective of different kinds of invisible processes, different kinds of invisible landscapes. And basically as a result for this, after like 5-6 years of different investigations in one group that was called Share Lab, I came up with the 3 really big black maps. And those 3 maps together, they are called Exploitation Forensics, because basically they explore different and investigate different kinds of exploitations. No? So basically it started with this place here. So it's us, human beings. And basically it started from the room. And what I was really wanted to investigate is basically what's going on behind the screen. And that's not so easy thing to do, no? Because usually what like those like machines and those like interfaces that we are seeing, they're not made for us to be open. They're not made to be seen. And they're just like screens protecting us to see something that is behind. No? So it started with the investigation of the objects that we are seeing at our home. So for example, in this case, it's Amazon Echo device. But we investigated a lot of different objects in our investigations. So first thing that you're seeing some object. And then what you can do, you can open the thing. No? But that's not usually how it goes, because some of those objects are made to get broken when you open them. So they're literally made to stay closed. But in a way, when we open this device, like for example Amazon Echo or any other, we are not going to see a lot. What we are seeing in our hand is basically just an interface. It's a bunch of sensors, and because the real machine, the real device, it's somewhere else. And I wanted to investigate, like step by step in our investigation. I wanted to go further and further to come until the end of this, like to pass those layers of invisibility and to try to understand what's going on. So a second step is basically leading us to the networks. So for example, this device at our home, it's connected to a network, and this network is connected to another network. So first, like few months and few years, for a few months, let's say, we were investigating networks around us. So what we were doing like some kind of trace routing, trying to understand how different networks look like. And what we were getting some kind of abstract maps showing us some kind of, structures. And okay, for me, it was like really, interesting and beautiful experience to get this kind of like really beautiful maps, because I always wanted to be, cartographer or something like this. But the main question is like what we are seeing in those maps. Basically, those places of concentration, those places, for example, this point or that point here, those are the places of power. Because of each of those centers of networks, this is the place where someone can decide what you are going to see, what kind of packets will go through, what kind of packets will be stopped, what speed of the packets will have. So what they are able to do there, they are able to censor, but also they're able to change the speed of the packets. That means, for example, to slow down, for example, packets related to BitTorrent or to peer-to-peer networks, and to make faster packets that are related to Netflix. And after like few times trying to for example, download something, you will say, okay, I cannot deal with this, I will pay this $10 and then like see Netflix instead of like relying on peer-to-peer networks. Huh? So this is why those places are places of control, the places of power. And basically by mapping and trying and seeing those networks, we are able to understand how those networks are interconnected and to understand basically who is communicating with who and on which places, for example, you are able to, those like, I don't know, for example, like different governments tend to practice this kind of mass collection of data. And when you look those maps, you see where this magic of mass surveillance is happening. And then the story goes further to submarine cable infrastructure that we were like really interested in, and then going deeper into, you know, internet platforms and services. Then you're coming to places where the data is being stored, and then like deeper and deeper you're coming, you know, to some kind of more and more abstract events. So, for example, here, in case of Amazon Alexa, now we are facing some kind of machine learning process or some kind of strange algorithms and so on and so on. And our investigation were going like this, step by step, going deeper into what we like to call surveillance capitalism. Because like if we are looking carefully what is like the business model of the biggest companies nowadays, you will see that most of them, like Google, Facebook, and others, they rely, their main business model is based on surveillance capitalism, based on collecting data about us and then selling this as a final product. And this is the moment in which I'm jumping to another really complex map, this one. It's called Inside Facebook Algorithmic Factory. So this is our previous, this is the research in which after we you know, we're having like those first pictures of surveillance capitalism by visualizing all of those trackers and everything. Our maybe some kind of golden cow of investigation was like how to try to understand one of the biggest factories that exists today in the world. That is basically Facebook, you know. So this is one of the biggest factory of the surveillance capitalism. And it's really not so easy to do that because like, we were not able to collect a lot of data. So what we did, first we like took, I don't know, like 10, like we created like I think like 20 or 30 fake Facebook accounts, buying a new SIM card and registering accounts and stuff like this, but really fast we realized that it's completely not possible to create this kind of like clear laboratory place for investigating Facebook. Because in order to have some kind of clean computer, you will probably need to have a completely new computer with a completely new SIM card that never went online in order to have like this kind of fresh start for data collection. In the moment you do something, you're already contaminated because the trackers of Facebook or all of those companies are everywhere. So we investigated those trackers, and then in like 90% of the time there was some kind of Google tracker, and more than 50% of the time there was Facebook tracker being embedded in the website. So that means every step you make online, you're basically contaminating the data set, because then this step influences on what you are seeing and so on and so on. So I said, okay, this is hard. And what we did, we basically scraped and investigated a lot of different ways how Facebook is collecting data. And we analyzed the interface. So we map here every possible interaction, like what you can do. For example, you can like, share, search, check in, create, I don't know, whatever, add photo, games, so on. So those are actions and behavior that we are doing while using Facebook. Then profile information, the things that you think about yourself, then we try to map all of that, and so on and so on. We try to investigate different kinds of digital footprints that are basically used by Facebook to map our behavior. So this is what our devices are saying about us. We investigate a lot of cookies, different companies that are also part of this kind of Facebook universe. So that was on the left side of the map. On the right side of the map, we mapped different kinds of like We basically scraped how the process of creating ads. So we try to understand basically how they are selling us. And they're selling us by our age, gender, location, languages, education, ethnic affinity, generation, home. Where is it like family-based household or not? Is it, I don't know, whatever. So 1 trillion different ways how they're basically selling us, how they are classifying us as a product. And then the first idea was like, if we are able to connect like left side of the map, data that is going in, with the right side of the map, like how they're selling us, we will be able to see, for example, if we are speaking about like targeting based on age, then we were trying to connect this with the data where we are putting our age or something like this. But then we realized this is completely stupid, because like there is a lot of things happening in between, and what is happening in between, it's the main thing. This is like the main stuff. This is the black box. And then we found out like some 7,000 to 8,000 different patents that were publicly available, and we tried to read some of them that were basically giving us some hints to create this mosaic, this map. And it's really, really interesting to do that, because then you start to basically uncover the process. So what is this process? This process is transformation of our behavior into profit. This is what generates like these billions and billions per year. This is the factory. And then the main question was like, okay, what is our position in this factory? And then there is this story about immaterial labor from like beginning of 2000s, and Tiziana Terranova and others, speaking about us, that when we are working on Facebook, when we are working on those platforms, not working, when we are doing something, liking, commenting, we are basically doing a labor. We are basically working for Facebook. But in this sense, by making this picture, making this map, I realized maybe it's not just about that. Because here, it didn't look like the labor is completely done by us. Because here in this picture, we are basically in the position of the resource, not so much as a labor. So we are more in position of like, in this Matrix movie, is it Matrix? Yeah. These fields of humans as a batteries, like this kind of scary idea of the future. But basically here, we are also some kind of human fields of data collection. On top of us, you have a lot of models, a lot of different interfaces, a lot of different methods of data collection. So this is the main thing, the extraction of data, extraction of every hour of data about every hour move, our heartbeats, our behavior, our communication with other people, our human social interactions. This is the extraction process. But what was really interesting for me, it was here. So this is basically the heart of this system, is basically a map. And this is like, for me, it was like really interesting. So what kind of map it is? It's one huge social graph, but it's so big, so it have like billions and probably trillions and trillions of different nodes. So every our interaction, every us as a user, everyone, is one node. But also every picture, it's another node. So all of those nodes, billions and billions of nodes that are being basically created every day, are becoming a part of one extremely big map. No? So, and this map, it's the heart of that company. This map, it's the heart of those billions and billions. It's the source of billions and billions for them. But this map, it's not made for us to be understood. No? So this map, it's something that should be understood by different algorithms and different mathematical functions. So on top of this map, you have hundreds and hundreds of different algorithms, different mathematical functions, even machine learning processes, AI, whatever, crawling all over that map and extracting different information, basically classifying and quantifying our behavior that is written in the map. From there, we are becoming part of different processes and so on, and being sold as some kind of like product at the end. And so, but another question is why you should make this kind of map? Because these maps, and there was not a lot of maps like this. Basically, I didn't saw any. And one reason, because it's like completely crazy to do that kind of stuff. It's really tiring. Another stuff, the question is who is going to make those kind of maps? Because everyone is working for Facebook or Google or big companies or marketing agencies and so on. So now no one have a time to investigate this kind of stuff. But another question, is this map a possible thing? Because if, in order to progress into the future in which things are going to be more transparent and we are not just the slaves in this some kind of like accumulation of capital of few big companies, we will need to have more transparency. But the thing is like those maps are not possible as well because, for example, this map is probably really bad map, as some kind of antique map of the world in which like Africa looks strange and America it's not discovered, you know, or you know, like, and in the same time, but it's really okay to do that because if we don't try to make our relation between each other, because those processes written here, they're basically moderating our relations, okay? Moderating what we are seeing, how we are communicating. And if we don't want to make them transparent, then we will always be a sheep in this game, you know? So we spend a lot of time investigating different kinds of black boxes. But then what happened, so it's a map number 2 or 3. What happened, I met 2 really important people for me. One is Joanna Moll, artist from Barcelona, and she infested me with idea of materiality of technology. Like, for example, how much all of those systems are spending CO2, like creating CO2 or spending energy and so on, so on, so on. And then I met another really amazing human being. Her name is Kate Crawford, and she's running institute that's called AI Now. And then we started to draw this map together. And what is the difference between this map and the previous maps? This map, if we start from the middle, it's explaining basically this story that I was telling to you. It's starting from you as a human user, then you have an object in your hand, then you have a network, then you have internet platforms and services, data centers, algorithms, training process, okay? And then what I was thinking, okay, if we are looking at this infrastructure in this moment, we are seeing that, some kind of huge system of invisible infrastructure. But if we rewind time 40 years ago or 30 years ago, all of those systems, all of those objects were different kinds of rocks. And this is this idea of like, so really like for a few years I was into this kind of like investigating what Marshall McLuhan will call extension of our senses. So he's saying like media, it's extension of our sense. And then I was investigating this extension, those tubes. But here, it's more like what Jutsi Parikka is saying. Media is extension of Earth. So the story, it's starting from here. It's starting from Earth, and then different elements, and then how those different elements are basically transformed into technology that we are using today. So I started to investigate this process, and it's a completely different story. Not completely, but kind of different. So in previous investigation, the main topic was, of course, privacy, data collection, tra-la-la-la-la. But here it's more about labor, no? Because if you start to follow each of those elements, you have a different strange stories that appear. So the first story, it's that like in one device, like iPhone or I don't know, Amazon Echo device, there is a 3/4 of the periodic system of elements in each of those devices. So the big difference today and like few tens of years ago, like 30, 50, 100 years ago, it was like now we are using almost the full spectrum of periodic system of elements. in each of those devices. Before, everything was more simple. You know, the stone, your house is made of stone that is probably a few hundred kilometers maximum away from you. Here, the hundreds of different elements are being sourced all over the globe. And then they move in different rhythms, different ways, until they join in this device at the end. No? So I started to follow this story. And in order to tell this story, I'd use those strange triangles that basically I took from Christian Fuchs, and then Christian Fuchs took from Marx. Basically, each of those triangles are saying this: resource with the use of labor is transformed into the product. But then the product is becoming a resource that with the use of labor is transformed into the product. And then it's becoming a resource. Each of those steps have their own problems. So here, for example, you have, you know, like people working in mines in Congo earning, you know, like less than $1 per day, being killed, so on, so on. A lot of different problems like hard labor, forced labor, child labor, lower paid labor, conflict minerals, so on, so on. But what I was always seeing, it's like combination of different hazards. So it's like working hazards, health risks, and environmental risk as well. So, and the thing is, if we follow those triangles, and I try to list all different jobs that exist on that way, so you're starting from like people that earn like $0 to $1 per day, and then on the top of this pyramid is basically like someone who is earning 7 million per day. So this is the scale of this, and most of us are in the first little part of this scale, and just few of people are on the top. And probably you know this story, no? But, and then I tried to go on most of those places. And this map for me was like the most exciting one probably in my life, because I went to really crazy places in order to see, because I wanted to see how that looked like. It's not visible in this map because it's just black and white and there is no pictures, but you know, I went through a lot of different adventures on this way. So what is also interesting, for a long time I was thinking that the black boxes of our society are just here. I don't know. Algorithms, machine learning, so on, so on. But the production process, it's a black box itself. And so there is a lot of story to explain that. So for example, before each of devices that are like assembled in each of different components assembled into iPhone come to Shenzhen in Foxconn factory, there is a 270 something main suppliers supplying those components to Shenzhen. Just if you calculate how much each of those components, like how many kilometers they're traveling, you will get it's 2 times to the moon and back, just in the last step. And this is somewhere here on the top. No? But behind you have, so those 274 suppliers have their own 274 suppliers that have their own 274 suppliers that have their own 274 suppliers. More I was going there into those investigations, I was realizing that the process of production looks like this, looks like fractal. More you're zooming in, more you're getting a new triangles of exploitation. And it's really hard to investigate that. So for example, Intel spent like 2 years to investigate their own production chain. 2 years for their own thing. Because it's a black box on a lot of different levels. And then what is also interesting, it's like how, you know, in the beginning here on the bottom, you have like more like hard labor and like classical, you know, this kind of imperialism and all of those things. But more you're going up, you're seeing different combination of like human labor and algorithmic labor. So this, for example, here on the top, I was there like a few weeks ago in Amazon storage place, the big one in the United States. You have this kind of dance between robots, data, and human labor. So what you have those, okay, this is the robot, and they're moving shelves. So on the top of the shelves, there's different objects, and those objects are not there because they are not there by any human logic. So what the human logic will be shampoo, 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 soap, 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 or A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, or colors, or whatever. This is human logic. But those objects on those shelves are basically a representation of statistical data or big data, real-time data, what people are buying together and what. So it's completely for human being some kind of like, what's this? Like why this is next to that, and you don't understand anything. Even the worker doesn't understand anything. So why? Because the worker then some kind of device attached to them that it's saying to them, arms up, position 1, 2, 3. So this worker is basically dancing in the rhythm of some kind of data sets or real-time data that is arranging those objects there. And it's a really hard labor. And the next thing, so we also found like one of the patents that is explaining basically how they then, because it's really dangerous environment, now they want to put human beings, like workers, into cage, and then to put the cage on top of the robot. And then, so for me, it was this kind of like perfect example of this kind of alienation of humans and labor in 21st century. So that was the birth. Then you have a life, and then in the end you have a death of those devices. So in this kind of death part that I never have a time to explain, it's basically things are happening in reverse. So most of the objects that we are using are being thrown away, even they are still functional. So like I think it's again 3/4 of devices are still working. And we are throwing them away because they are not cool, or the operative system it's updated, or things like this. So, and then in reverse, they're again finishing as a type of some kind of like new geological layer, finishing in Earth. So this map, it's starting within Earth and finishing within Earth. And another interesting thing is like, so what's new compared to things before? It's basically this part here, so machine learning, and there is this story about black boxes, how like machine learning process, it's a black box, you cannot reverse engineer, and in a way, it's true, but it's just another black box, another layer of untransparency. And then on the back, again, there is a lot of kind of labor that we don't associate with artificial intelligence. So for example, labeling of data set and all of these kind of things that we do not consider to be a labor at all. So, and this map in a sense, it's speaking about three things. Speaking about the exploitation of labor, exploitation of Earth, and exploitation of data, And it really puts us in some kind of strange position. And we had like a lot of discussion how to define this position of the user in this system. And when I was speaking about Facebook, I was speaking about immaterial labor and this kind of stuff. Here, you are most of the time, you have like all three positions. Being a worker, being a resource, and being a product. And in a way, this is a new shift. And time to time, we are switching between those three positions. What is also new in this process, if we are speaking about AI, it's also about like there is a new golden rush related to data, like data this, data. And then if we think like what that means, like who is producing data, most of the time it's us, no? So it's like, what type of data? Our individual or social bodies, quantification of human body, profiling, biometrics, psychological data, behavioral data. So there is this, like Silicon Valley is promoting this idea of data as a new gold. And basically it's not data as a new gold. It's our body, our behavior as a new gold that is being extracted, no? And now, because they said, okay, everyone needs to do that in order to create new gold. You have thousands and thousands of startups, little companies that are basically digging deeper and deeper and deeper, trying to, it's a wild, wild west of conquer of our bodies, of our emotions, of our behavior, of our social interaction. So this is what is going on now. So, and to finish maybe this presentation, it's also about enclosure of something that is common or something that is private, like our bodies. So in the moment when, for example, Google is like getting like all of those MRI scans from UK, they're doing great thing, no? They're like helping to you know, detect cancer faster and stuff like this. But in the same time, they conquered one territory that will be theirs. So they privatized the part of our body, they privatized our disease, you know, by collecting data about it. Because in the moment you collect enough data about something, you are able to train some kind of AI system, and then you are able to transform this data into basically property. Because from that moment, you will be the one who will be able to exploit this. So this is like and in a way, this map that is called Anatomy of an AI System, there is also a website and a really nice essay about it. It's speaking about this triangle, our relation between us as a human beings, technology, and nature. And this is like the third part that is most of the time missing. Because most of the time you're discussing things relation between us and technology, but really rarely us, technology, and nature. So, yeah, do you have more time? Or done? Okay. Thank you. It was really a pleasure.